the selection of the National Human Rights Commissioners, apart from the application that those who were interested made, the list was coming from the Ministry of Justice, and it was sent to 6 civil society organizations. The Youth Council, I think, was one of them. The visually impaired were one of them. Gambia Bar Association was one of them. Tango was one of them. So 6 civil society actually looked at the list and selected 9 names. Those 9 names were sent to the parliament to select 5. So it is the 5, so blame the parliament. They selected the 5 and gave it to His Excellency, the President. And what he did was, he appointed those 5 after the vetting from parliament. But I see your point, what you're saying, but I just want you to understand that it was not the chairman who selected the commissioners or the commissioners who selected themselves. This was the process. Having said that, however, we are recruiting staff of the secretariat of the commission. And one of the things that we have in mind is to make sure that the staff of the secretariat, from the senior legal counsel to the investigators to the deputy secretary, executive secretary, are all fall under the umbrella of the youth. And very soon, as we parade our full secretariat, you will see that the overwhelming majority of the staff of the commission are youths. Last point. How are we working with the security sector? I have just informed you that, for example, we just had a training with the police. Because our mandate is very broad, extremely very broad, but by an act of the parliament. And we're going to popularize. And I just want to tell the governor of his region that very soon you are on our radar. We will come and visit you so that we will popularize to you, your staff, government officers, and others about the mandate of the National Human Rights Commission. We have started engagement with the police, but not only the police, the NIA, the military, because it is our job to build this culture. We have been mandated, despite all the other things that we're supposed to do, it should all point to having a culture of rule of law. And we've mentioned something, the tension that has existed because of the history that we're coming from. There is tension, and there will be tension until we have mutual mistrust between the security forces who were seen as oppressors. Let us be honest. People see them as oppressors. And until we change that, we have actually started introducing community policing so that the people, the citizenry, can see the police as an institution that is vital in maintaining law and order. If we don't see that, then there will be a problem. I think I'll stop there for now.
Yeah. Well, you talked about changes. For some people, is there any difference in the way people were handled in the past and now, considering the way the police malhandled the 37 youth who were arrested recently?
Okay. As I've said, things have not changed overnight. I've said that. And the police themselves, they also realize that. But the fact that we even, when the problem happened in July, we went to the anti-crime. And the reception that we got, you know, in the old days, perhaps we'll not even leave that place. We went, it was our mandate, we inspected the custodies, we had discussion with them, we were very frank with them about what the law says, what the Constitution says, what they should do, what the do's and the don'ts. And of course, currently, I do not want to say much because we're still doing our investigation and fact-finding, and we're even talking to others, even in this particular instance, what sparked it was the death of Usman Dabo. We're even talking to family members, and we will come out openly in a press conference. We will make our recommendation because the National Human Rights Commission has the mandate to come up with recommendations and tell the government what it should do, tell the government, and also not only do that, but seek remedial action. And the Act even mandates us that if we recommend something, the government must either do it or tell us within 30 days why they have not done so. So it is a process. I think there has been changes. The fact that the police will try to even justify the arrogance before, you know, that was there. Now, even if you engage them, it's different. I must tell you, I've had dialogue with them. We sit and we talk, and it has started. It is a process, And it will, I believe it will change, but we'll have to push.
Okay, can one say it's yet to change, considering the way these young people were pushed and all sorts of things done to them when they were going inside the van?
Yes, I'll agree with you again. Much work needs to be done.
Okay.
Much work needs to be done.
All right. Okay, so I think, Seni, you have one question to answer from the audience.
Yes.
You can go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. There is a question from a young man asking what is the CRC doing in terms of engaging the security sector in the review process. As part of our mandate to draft a new constitution for the Gambia, we have engaged key stakeholders in this review process, and security sector is one of those key stakeholders in this process. We had a meeting with all the 9 sister security institutions at a day-long forum we had some time back at the CRC headquarters. And then the discussion was centered on how do we look at the acts that create this security institution. Because if you look at this security institution one by one, they all created by an act of parliament. Are this act in conformity with the current realities? So we had a discussion with, I can't talk much about it because at the moment the commission is taking key decisions that will be in the new draft constitution. But I can tell you that the security sector have been duly consulted, and all their heads were at a meeting we had at the CRC Secretariat. Just recently, a supplementary meeting was held with the official from the Gambia Immigration Office, where issues of citizenship, issues of naturalization were discussed. To make sure that at the end of the day we have a constitution that will stand the test of time, a constitution that will not be easily manipulated, a constitution that will go through amended for more than 52 times. And how many of us are aware that our 1997 constitution has been butchered 52 times? You know, because even the original constitution, there was a term limit in it. But how many of us know about that? That was removed from the 1997 constitution without going through the due process. So we are putting in place mechanism to ensure that the new constitution that will come into effect in January will not be easily manipulated without going through the due process. I hope that answers your question.
We have one question here for Dr. Baba Galejalo, but before that, quickly, another question for you. Recently in an interview, Justice Minister Batambedu did mention that he does not have enough lawyers in his department. How do you think that will affect the justice system in the Gambia?
Well, the minister was right. He does not have men of lawyers, and even some of us are to blame in the National Human Rights Commission and even the UN. We have recruited some lawyers that left the Ministry of Justice for the commissions, even the TRRC. I'm not sure about the CRC, whether your lawyers are part-time, but they're just commissioners. But yes, but you know, it's a fact of life. People also move for better conditions of service and sometimes for career development. And I'm sure the minister is probably working out something. I think Mr. Tomasi probably is in a better position to talk about this. But I'm sure maybe they're trying to improve the conditions of service so that they'll be able to retain more staff. But it is worrying because the Ministry of Justice play a very important part in the justice system. You know, it's the key institution with all these reforms. They've worked tirelessly to make sure that, well, with development partners, that we have even all these transitional justice processes that we have. They prosecute, you know, so I hope they're working out something, but this is where we are, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, let's hope they're working out something because we need more lawyers in that department, I believe. This question is from the audience. And the question reads, it's for Dr. Baba Galejalo. Why were the junglers who testified at the TRRC released even before the TRRC completed?
Well, that's a very good question, but I think that the right person to ask that question would be the Ministry of Justice. The TRRC has nothing to do with the release of the junglers. We did not recommend their release. We were not consulted before they were released. So that has to be made very clear. One of the things that we have to be dealing with is the confusion between the Ministry of Justice and the TRRC, and Mr. Tomasi has rightly explained that the TRRC is an independent institution. So we have nothing absolutely to do with the release of the junglers. It was a decision taken by the Ministry of Justice. He did explain to us his rationale. He did not consult us before the announcement. And so the Ministry of Justice is the right person, or the minister himself is the right person to answer that question, not the TRRC. All the junglers did was we had information that they were interested in testifying. We reached out to them, they testified, and it was for the Ministry of Justice to release. Our mandate is to finish our investigations, finish our work. At the end of our mandate, we'll make recommendations for prosecution or for amnesty, depending on who qualifies for amnesty. Okay? Until that time, it is the ministry's prerogative to release people or not to release them. The TRRC has nothing to do with the release of the junglers. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. It seems somebody wants to answer the question. That is Mr. Tomasi from the Justice Ministry.
Thank you. Let me state that the junglers, if I may call them so, were released at the behest of the Ministry of Justice and not at the TRRC. But let me also state categorically that the junglers were not granted amnesty. They were not extricated from any culpability. They have not been freed, so to speak. They have just been released on terms and conditions. And the ministry did this because we believe that it was important to do so, having kept these people for over 2.5 years without trial and without doing anything pertaining to their case. We did not have any evidence at the time that we had these junglers in custody to prosecute them. And still, we do not have any evidence that you can call conclusive evidence for us to carry out prosecutions. Prosecutions are matters that are to be recommended by the TRRC upon its conclusion. It would be part of the recommendations of the TRRC. They are the ones who would determine those who would be prosecuted. The Act states that those who bore the greatest responsibility in the atrocities that were committed would be the ones to be recommended for prosecution. At this stage, it would be premature. It would be premature to state who will be prosecuted. It's a mandate that has been granted to the TRRC, and it is fair that we wait for the TRRC to make its recommendations. But we have decided to allow these people to go on certain terms and conditions, and it has also been stated that they will be used, or they could potentially be used as witnesses in any prosecutions that may be carried out in the future. Of course, those of you who are legally minded would know that even allowing somebody, stating to somebody that you would use as potential as a witness, obviously there are a lot of things which are inherent in that. People have been saying, why didn't you carry out a plea bargain with them before you release them, or why didn't you punish them? The truth is that where is the evidence? I think we should be patient. We should be patient. A lot of the other junglers are still out of this country. The idea at this stage is to uncover the truth, gather the evidence before we can take any action. And we cannot continue to keep people in custody without any action. We also have to respect rights of people, whether as perpetrators or victims. We have to respect the rights of every Gambian. But We have not granted amnesty. We have not carried out a deal with these junglers. We have only released them on terms and conditions. If you like, you can say that it's just like they are on bail. These are not people who can escape this country. These are people who were here and did not escape. And we considered it in the best interest of uncovering the truth that we would release them. And the idea is obviously also geared towards ensuring that we get other people, encourage other people, other perpetrators to testify so that we can uncover the whole truth and know what transpired in this country. So I just wanted to briefly state that. Thank you.
Yes, so the next question is as well from the audience, and it goes to Dr. Baba Jallo again. Why is the TRRC traveling all the time, for example, to USA, spending a lot of money on travels, when they can use Skype conference to hear from victims?
Seems like I'm getting some very difficult questions here. About the diaspora engagement, again, we are very grateful for the support that we're receiving from the Peace Building Support Office of the United Nations through the UNDP office here. And this diaspora engagement is funded by the UNDP, and it's in line with the African Union transitional justice policy. I think all Gambians would agree that the Gambian diaspora played a very significant role in the struggle that led to the downfall of the dictatorship here. So the UNDP has money to fund this diaspora engagement. Again, it is not from the government of the Gambia or the TRRC that this dialogue is funded. And I think that it is important that we engage members of the diaspora directly as part of our outreach activities. Here in the country, the TRRC goes everywhere to meet the Gambian people. I think if we have a chance to go out there and meet Gambians outside of the country, I think we should take the chance, and that's exactly what we did.
Oh, okay.
To that answer, thank you. I think the issue of the diaspora is basically, when we want a process to be inclusive, we cannot start by excluding. And I think many countries, whether it comes to electoral processes or transitional justice, are making sure that there are mechanisms to make sure that the citizens who are outside the country, whether by their own will, have also the possibility to engage and to contribute. And I think yesterday I saw a tweet where in one of the places the diaspora start even contributing for the reparation fund that the Transitional Justice TRRC will be putting in place. So just to say that this is a process for all Gambian citizens, wherever they are, wherever they sit, whether they are young, elders, or women, to make sure that this historic moment is there and they can contribute to any manner that they can on a very constructive way. Now, if we have resources, and we have done it in many countries, sometimes people move toward the diaspora to hear their voices. They're also using other tools. They can have mechanisms where their contributions are received online. Because even if you go to a place, it's not everybody who can move. The whole West Coast region could not be in this room today. But we make sure that people who are rich can convey the message as far as to the larger group, so that this historic moment is owned by all Gambian and women, youth, and people who are within the country and outside the country. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I guess majority of you want to know about the TRRC because the next question has to do with the TRRC as well. So the question reads, when can the victims of violation receive reparations since some of them are in critical conditions and need help? Help them before they die. When can the victims of human rights violations receive reparation, since some of them are in very critical conditions? Help them before they die.
Yeah, excellent question again. Now, unlike truth commissions, many truth commissions, almost every truth commission that I know of, apart from perhaps Morocco, the TRRC is granted the power to grant reparations. So we don't recommend reparations at the end of the process. We actually are able to grant reparations, interim reparations they're called. Now, that is a huge burden because one, we need a lot of resources, and two, there are many, many victims who need help. Now, I'm happy to say that one of the first things that we did last year, it was in November, was to request the Ministry of Justice, citing our act, for them to create a medical board to see the victims of torture and victims of gunshot wounds who have been waiting for medical attention for 19 years or more. Now, the Ministry of Justice was gracious enough. They set up the medical board. And from November last year to now, that medical board has been seeing victims of gunshot wounds from the April 10, 11, 2000 incident. They've been seeing victims of torture. They've been seeing victims of sexual violence. So as we speak, we are granting, making accessible to a lot of victims who need urgent medical attention through the medical board. And as we speak right now, we have submitted 9 names to the Turkish embassy. And those 9 individuals, 9 victims, including 5 victims of the April 10, 11 student massacre, might be able to get treatment abroad. So that process is ongoing. We've been able to secure all the scans that they need, able to secure all the medical reports, got some passports for some of them to be able to make this journey to Turkey or to another country. So within our limited resources, we are doing our best to help victims of sexual violence, victims of gunshot wounds, victims of torture or incarceration in inhuman conditions to get medical attention. I think we are doing that, and hopefully we'll be starting to see results very soon. So we are doing what we can under very tricky and difficult conditions. But I'm sure that with the goodwill out there, we will succeed in helping out whoever we are able to help out. And hopefully, no one will die before they get medical attention that they need. Thank you.
We hope and pray that no one dies, because that is his request, that nobody should die from these human rights violations. This question goes to the National Human Rights Commission, and you talked about this briefly. What is the National Human Rights Commission doing about the 37 youth who are in jail at the moment?
Okay. Well, just to tell you that even just yesterday, there is an organization that is actually at the forefront fighting for these 37 youths that have been arrested and now charged with, I think, arson or conspiracy to commit arson. They have actually seen the National Human Rights Commission. Yesterday, we had a discussion with them, and I would not want to elaborate much on it, but yes, but we are talking to them. The police also, as you know, they have charged them. The issue is, for the lawyers will tell you that there's certain charges which carry the death penalty and life imprisonment. They are not bailable. So, and apparently it appears that these 37 were charged with these offenses. Our concern is that we hope that they're following due diligence and that this prosecution is not out of vendetta, but because these are issues that we are raising. The police, as I rightly say, they have the function. Their powers is to apprehend offenders, to maintain the peace, but in doing so, they have to do that in accordance with law. Our concern has been raised. We hope that those that they have identified, that they have evidence, and they're not just using the legal process to punish some that they feel they have issues with, if I can say that for now. But we are very concerned, and we are monitoring the process. Our job as a National Human Rights Commission is also to monitor what is happening, and we're doing so. And in due course, we're talking to all parties. We will come out with our recommendation.
Yes, I think this question goes to you as well. The Public Order Act is restricting youth from exercising their rights to assemble. What is the National Human Rights Commission doing to address this challenge?
Okay. The Public Order Act is going to be the English would say the hot potato. Maybe in our case it will be the hot mboha for the season. Because it's, again, giving the context where we're coming from. People want to talk. People want to demonstrate. We've seen the youths from what? It was Gambia has decided, the Gambia we want, and now we have this emerging Gumsa Bopa, the dumping at the backwater sites. So there will be demonstrations. And I think the government should understand that this will be the new face of Gambia, whether we like it or not. Yes, we have a Public Order Act. As a National Human Rights Commission, we feel that the Public Order Act needs to be amended. I know for a fact that there are currently some reforms going on, criminal law reform. I hope the Public Order Act is one of them. And the Ministry of Justice, I think it's also spearheading this with support from UNODC in reforming the laws. Yes, we have a Public Order Act. Unfortunately, not very long ago, we had a decision from the Supreme Court of the Gambia, which a lot of people were not happy with. We don't even agree with that decision, especially if you look at the treaties and the conventions that the Gambia has ratified now, especially when it comes to the issue of permits. In most cases now, it is not, in most countries now, it is not permit, but a notification to the authorities. Because we feel that the issue of permit has been abused. It has been. You look at what used to happen in the past. You know, the police will grant only permits to maybe, maybe the APRC and not UDP, or groups that they felt were pro-government. And we feel that if you look at the jurisprudence of the other countries, they have moved away from giving the Inspector General of Police. And in this case, even the governor, if it is out of the Greater Banjul, it's the governor who has the powers to give this permit or to refuse. We are saying, as a National Human Rights Commission, we understand that this is the law. And we will tell you to try and get a permit before you move. But we are also telling the government, listen, this law is archaic. And by the way, this law is being challenged, as I tell you, at the Human Rights Court in Arusha. There is an NGO here that is challenging the decision of our Supreme Court. So very soon, I think there will be changes in this law. But just to answer your question, we think that it unnecessarily gives the IGP the powers to, yes, to stop demonstration if he's not happy. Although, again, let me emphasize, it's not that I'm talking about lawlessness. It is good. The police must be notified, even to protect those who want to demonstrate, because sometimes you have those who want to do counter-demonstration. So there is a need for reform. There is a need for some form of notice. What we are saying is, we do not think that in a democratic dispensation, you can have an authority deciding on their whims and caprices as to who should be given permit or not. Because the law is very clear. It says it's a fundamental right and freedom of a country where citizens have that right. The chairman of the Gambia Bar Association wants to say something about this, and maybe. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I couldn't resist to contribute on this very important topic, and I think it goes to the heart of our democracy. And I'm very happy that my big brother spoke of, I think, the most important value in a democracy, which is tolerance. We can have great constitutions, we can have a great TRRC process, we can have an independent judiciary. But in the absence of tolerance, all those institutions would be meaningless. I think, in my humble opinion, at the heart of the challenge we have now, which is the contestation of power and space between state and citizenry, particularly the young, is about how do you manage each other's expectations. The young people, having been in a coma for 22 years, have woken up and want to speak and speak any way they want. I'm not saying that's right, but that's how they feel. We have a state that only knew how to clamp down, now needs to police young people in a democratic space. And of course, this is very, very difficult. So it goes back to culture. How do we now imbibe a new culture that allows the state to play its role as duty bearers to protect and uphold our values, the young people to live as good citizens, good and responsible citizens. And for that purpose, you need a dialogue. We have been, I don't want to get into the legal, I'm part of the legal team of this 36 arrested people. In as much as it's difficult, we've actually been having dialogue. We've actually, I'm aware of the meeting with you, Halifa Sallah, even the IGP of police. We sat with him, with the top brass, and had a very frank discussion. They spoke their mind to the young people and vice versa, and I think there's progress being made, but still, the political will at the top should understand that there is no need to be afraid of the young people. I think that is the fundamental issue. These young people are a resource that needs to be harnessed and managed so they can benefit the country. Unless and until the top brass understand that these young people are not a threat. They are not a threat. They are part of they are one of the most important facets of our country. And even if they get it wrong, you have to come and talk to them, inspire them. We need to have that frank discussion, and the president has to champion that discussion. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
It seems like dialogue is lacking for everybody. And dialogue is exactly what we need to go forward, because that is the recommendation that is given by several young people. That is, dialogue is what we need. And we just hope that it's around the corner. We have a few minutes to go. Yeah, due to time constraints, these questions will be answered quite quickly. The question goes to Seni MK Marina. What mechanism is put in place with the CRC for unlawful amendment of draft constitution in case it occurs? We have seen that, okay, I think there's an error. We have seen that in the last regime. Administrations do that.
I think I have highlighted that in my previous answer to the question about the engagement of the security sector in the review process. I made it clear that the CRC is employing mechanisms to ensure that what happened to the 1997 Constitution do not happen to the current Constitution that we are drafting. You will agree with me that a lot of efforts have been placed in trying to seek the opinions and views of all Gambians, irrespective of where you are. It has never happened in this country for the first time that those tasked with the responsibility of drafting a new constitution leave their comfort zone in Banjul, go out to the communities, sit with them, dialogue with them, talk to them, elicit their views. It has never happened. We are doing this because we want to build a constitution that will, stand the test of time. One thing that we will do, a new draft constitution will be presented to the Gambians in November. And the moment this is presented, we're going to publish it in all the media houses, both online, electronic, and print. So this will enable people to know what is in this draft constitution. So I think this is a very strong mechanism that we are employing to ensure that whatever goes into the constitution is known to every Gambian. We are not building the constitution for Senegalese, we are building it for the Gambian, and Gambians should take ownership of it. That's why young people have to take the lead in that crusade. Thank you.
I think This is going to be the last question due to time constraints, and it goes to Dr. Baba Galejalo. What impact will TRRC have on institutional reform?
Institutional reform, certainly, at the end of the TRRC process, we are going to make recommendations on TRRC, on institutional reform, because so far what has come out of our investigations and hearings is that there are lots of policy lapses, there are lots of institutional failures that led first to the 1994 coup, but also to the subsequent decades of human rights abuses. So as of now, we can't make any institutional reforms or recommendations on institutional reform or anything. But one thing I can assure you is that we have learned from the history of truth commissions that institutional reforms alone are not able to prevent a recurrence of dictatorship and human rights violations. And that informs our decision to launch this Never Again campaign that tends to, or inspires to, or aspires to empower the Gambian people, especially the young people, and transform the political culture of the country so that we correct the anomaly between the political perception of Gambians of the institution of government as a monarchy to the reality of the Gambian government as a constitutional republic. So in that sense, then the Never Again campaign is directed at transforming that anomaly and correcting the anomaly between perception and reality. But for institutional reforms, we certainly will make recommendations at the end of the day. Thank you.
Due to time constraints, that was the last question. And I hope all of your questions were answered properly. And I just want to say that the conversation on constitutional reforms is not going to stop here. Like Lamin mentioned, I have my youth dialogue program. This has inspired me to have future conversations concerning reforms in the country. So the conversation is not going to stop here. It's not just the National Youth Council's duty to have such discussions, but some of us even working in the media. So I am so inspired to continue this conversation on my program. I will allow my panelists to give their final words, final messages to young people out there when it comes to the reforms process in the Gambia.
Thank you very much, Jainaba. The emphasis today has been on dialogue. And one of the least dialogue processes, perhaps, is the SSR. But this is going to change. Recently, we came up as part of our communication strategy to ensure that all security heads communicate. Because security has to be demystified. Today, I came up bracing for what happened to my NSA the last time. Most of the questions were on security. I was a bit afraid. I'm glad that the narrative is being understood, but more than that, the emphasis on dialogue would also be taken on board. So we will be having a series of panel discussions where we'll have all the security heads from the Army Commander to Gambia Fire Service sit in a forum and discuss some of the measures that they are actually doing in terms of reform. Initially, we will be recording in-house at State House. And I'm sure by next week, you will start seeing this aired on all the broadcasting stations. So I would just like to reiterate that dialogue is important. And with respect to the SSR process, we will start communicating more and more so that this idea of mystifying security or the vacuum that is created from the lack of communication is at least filled. I would like to thank you all for having the patience to listen, but also to take it back home and amplify the message. Why everybody cannot be here is because we have chosen very crucial youth who are doing very important work. But the message is meaningless if it is not amplified. Amplify it in your respective constituents. Make sure the message travels wider than here, and that would be at least one of the impact you will create by being here. I once again thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. at this very historic juncture of our democracy. And thank you for coming, all of you. Thank you.
Briefly. I've been told to be very brief, so I will be brief. Again, I think we are all in this together. As the National Human Rights Commission, our main objective is to build a culture of human rights in this country. And we cannot do so without having the youths in the whole process. And as a Human Rights Commission, we are going to engage the youths because Gambia is our Gambia. We cannot build a culture based on tribalism. We cannot build a culture based on religious bigotry. We must have an all-inclusive society where we learn to live together as one Gambia. And this is what we're going to achieve in the new Gambia. Thank you very much.
Gambia is our Gambia.
Yeah.
Yes.
I should also keep it very brief. Since the beginning of the CRC process, young people have been taking the lead, and the next process is the most crucial part of the review process. That is the presentation of the draft report. So I urge young people to, keep taking ownership of the review process. We'll be meeting you shortly. So please join us and take the lead in this process. It's a constitution for young people. Thank you.
I'll be very brief too. Just to say that the young people need to take ownership of this country. You need to know your rights, but also your responsibilities as young people. Make sure that within the next election cycle, you go out there and get an ID card and get a voter's card and vote. Be a part of the political process. That's the only way you can take your destiny into your own hands. So you are the most productive segment of the population, and you are at the heart of the TRRC process. But you have to get out there and participate in the process. Thank you.
Thank you so much to my brilliant panelists, and thank you to the National Youth Council for giving me this opportunity to chair this panel. I hope I did justice. I hope I did justice. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be in the midst of such brilliant
Thank you very much, Jeneba. What a brilliant moderation. Colleagues, comrade young people, let's me to definitely thank the panelists, who I would say had been doing this even before this session. I've interacted and worked with all of them at different levels, working with young people. So I want to thank you sincerely for, this is Saturday, huh? And you know what, Saturday, if not this event, MK was already somewhere, I know, that exactly. But he is here to represent the chair and the team. So to our brother, Dr. Jallo, Saint MK, and Justice Diouf, and Rohi Samba, I say a big thank you. Last week, we had the national NSA himself present. This time, when he could not make it, he did not only call, but he wrote a whole letter to say, I apologize that I have other commitment, but someone will definitely represent us. And he appreciates this platform. So having you here, we are definitely grateful. And this shows the highest commitment that the NSA and the entire security sector reform have to citizen engagement. Again, my brother Justice Diouf also, we text, we chat, and he commit himself, and here he is among the first to be here today. So we definitely appreciate this. Let me say that the letter to TRRC, due to one reason or the other, had not even read doctor. So when we had our conversation, it's like, I mean, last week I know, but this one, I don't have the letter. I said, anyway, you asked me, you told me when we start this journey, this is not a job. It's a mission. I said, so we are on the mission. So if you are here, it's a mission. If you don't come, the mission will fail. He said, I'll be there myself. I'm not sending anyone. Last week he wasn't there, but he sent the Director of Investigation and Research to be with us. And I spoke with the Chair of Constitutional Review and also spoke to the Executive Secretary, and they are all like, Seni MK Marena will definitely be there. In fact, trust me, he'll be there earlier than anyone. So I am very grateful. But let me say that today, from here, I might not send another letter. Consider this a complete invitation to next weekend in LRR. And for sure, after LRR, we are going to create a new schedule where we will continue to Basel and elsewhere. What we can do as an agency is to create a platform that you can actually utilize and talk to the young people, and talk to stakeholders, our National Assembly members and all others. So I would say that I look forward to the partnership, I look forward to the collaboration. Government created a National Youth Council to be an interface, a bridge between the youths and the government, so that we can communicate government policies but also bring forth the concerns of young people. That's why we are a public agency, but 100% of our members are youth civil society organizations. So we hope that we will all utilize this platform, this interface, so that we can connect with our young people. Thank you so much for coming. I will not do justice without thanking and acknowledging Sal Tal. Salu from Gambia we want, who was supposed to be here for the yesterday session, but due to issues that I am personally aware of, he could not make it. But constantly he was following online, he was also sharing, he was calling, he was texting. He did not stop there, he even sent WhatsApp messages and emails. So we really appreciate this. And first in the morning he was here. So thank you so much. As the chair of the president of the Gambia Bar Association, also a civil society leader, to give all your time to come and listen to young people, but also to contribute. And again, we are co-organizing this. LRR is next week, and we will also go further and share the next schedule. Again, allow me to use this opportunity to thank the government of the Gambia. Through the representative and the special advisor to the Minister of Justice, Hussein Tomasi. I would say since when we started the TJ process in this country, Mr. Tomasi has been very helpful. Mr. Tomasi has been at the core of the whole process. We would not have I would say, we would not have been able to bridge our relation with government without someone like him, who listened, who is accommodative, and prepared always to move with us. When there was a call to ensure there was an establishment of the core team, Ministry of Justice invited National Youth Council and said we need to have someone. The first event they organized on TJ in this country was a stakeholders conference on transitional justice, international for that matter. And they create a slot and say, we need young people. We need you, Lamin, to come and talk to us about youth. I was a panelist. But from there, he has always been in touch, making sure that youths are on the table. We are in the core team of the TJs in this country. From the core team, we had the TJ drafting committee to draft the strategic plan. We are also part of that. And I was also nominated to even chair that committee to draft the National Transitional Justice Strategy. So which was done. When the TRRC was up, they wrote and said, we need to get a youth representative in the TRRC. And many were thinking, okay, Lamin will go. As a youth council, as a representative, we also made an open call, and people applied. But Mr. Tomasi was with us foot to foot to ensure that that recruitment, in fact, was quite transparent and based on the requirement. We had an independent panel. They reviewed the nominations, the people who applied, and also helped us to ensure that we picked the best three, one of whom should have been appointed as a commissioner. Fortunately for us, I will say fortunately for us, our first nominee was appointed Deputy Executive Secretary, the TRRC. Our second nominee was also appointed a staff in the TRRC. Our third nominee became a commissioner. So when, when I said, but we need to have more youth engineers, they say, you are definitely overrepresented. 99% of TRRC are youth. And one thing I must also say here, maybe we are not privileged to say it in other places. I went to ECOSOC this year. I met the UN Youth Envoy. We had a conversation with the Minister of Youth and Sports. He said, when I saw the Gambia National Youth Council post online calling for young people to express interest to be representing young people in TRRC, she said on Twitter when I saw it, I screenshot it and sent it to my government in Sri Lanka and told them, look at what Gambia is doing to ensure that young people are on the decks. That's what he told me. And that was a positive feedback that at the highest office of the United Nations appreciates such an initiative, that youths are not left behind. So I would say it's the same mechanism we used when the constitutional review came. They wrote to us, and we will make sure that in our assessment, the fourth person, we submit his name to the constitutional review. So if we are talking about getting young people at the decks, not just on the menu, definitely we are at the decks, not on the menu. We hope that these mechanisms and these processes will continue beyond representation to feedback. And that's why we wanted to create this platform, so that the feedback mechanisms continue. With the National Human Rights Commission, we already had the chairman. We hope that we'll be able to have another young institution, because all we are talking about reform is about the future. If young people can do it at TRRC, I am sure we can do far better elsewhere. And that is a given that we have all seen. I met the National Security Advisor, we had a conversation, and we all acknowledge there is disconnect at some point. And he is committed to even say, he made a commitment that if I even have a partner, just like the way they are seconding other staff to me, I will need someone who will be in my office representing young people, who will bring youth issues on our decks. And I think this is something we can take up. We have Mr. Tomasi, and we have our rep here to see how we are able to connect young people to the security sector. Often I will say it is young people in uniform and young people in mufti who are always in friction. When they go home, they sit at the same attire book, but when they are in uniform and other places, they are different. So we need to just break that thin line to understand that the vision is the same. So I want to definitely say that Government of the Gambia, through Mr. Tomasi, we want to thank you, but we want to say there is more room for improvement. More room for improvement, to engage, to dialogue, and to connect. We will definitely complain. We don't promise anyone that as young people will not complain. We don't compromise anyone that as young people will not express our opinion. We will not manifest our dissatisfaction. But anytime we do, please recognize that we have something to share. We don't know how to share. Engage us, and we can definitely share properly the way you want it. That's the only way we can definitely build bridges. We may not all be at the same level, but through this discourse and dialogue, we are learning, and we can definitely become the better person. I want to come to my regional authorities again. Thank you for coming. I said it in the morning, they had been with us. Let's give them a round of applause. As I speak here, I feel guilty for the fact that the councillors who came, in fact, could not even have breakfast. They all come from different parts of the region. As early as 6, as early as 5, others have to get from their rooms to make sure they are here on time. But when they came, they would just get into this session, and they could not leave the session and even go to have their breakfast. If someone is hungry and cannot leave even the hall to go and eat because he is interested in what has been said, I think that is the highest level of commitment that we can see in our authorities. And this is a challenge I want to pass. If you have initiative and ideas for your constituencies, for your wards, for your different constituencies, reach out. I can tell you, with Aisata behind me, we can definitely do more for West Coast region. And I take into your concern the issue of the land commission, land issues, to see how we are able to engage on that. That actually is something that I take note of, and I think we can definitely pick on that. Always, our doors are open, and as your doors are also open, we'll always engage. I must say I feel privileged that I am able to have personal relation even with people who represent me. With a phone call, they can respond. And again, with a phone call, they can direct me and say, this is what we want to do. We are much grateful, and we hope that this will just be the beginning of a dialogue. All the issues we have in our region, we just need to talk. Sit to the table. Take a phone, young people come, let's sit down. But the fundamental problem as a whole country is that often we will say, let's talk, but nobody wants to initiate the talk. We should not go and protest, we should not do this, but who is initiating talks? And I think we should all now become initiators of talks and dialogues. I finally want to thank my gallant young people, my comrades, my colleagues. When I was seated behind some of the questions that were coming, I was like, these ones are definitely serious questions, very serious questions. So we understand your concerns. Yesterday's conversations were quite healthy, and we hope that those questions that could not be answered we'll put it in the form of bulletin and share with the different institutions so that they are prepared for next session, but they can also take into account. Our persons with disability, we are grateful. You have been doing a tremendous job. Let's put our hands together for them. All the regions we go to, we have persons with disability and they are able to communicate. We hope this will continue and you can share with the rest of the team. So we are here, we'll be moving to LRR and we'll also be going to the rest of the other parts of the country, URR, CRR, NBR, and we'll finally be in Banjul. We hope that this is the beginning of the advocacy and the conversation we want to have. We are initiating and talking about youth-sensitive community policing, which is definitely going to come. And we are going to work with all of you to ensure that community policing will bridge the gap between young people and the security services. Ultimately, the vision is how do we build the Gambia we need. I want to just repeat our mantra. Peace is the word we will always say. We all need peace, but nobody gets peace by force. We will want to say justice, but nobody gets justice by force. So it's supposed to only be a compromise, negotiation, dialogue, consensus, so that we understand one another and move to the destination we want to go. Once again, our friends in the media, thank you for amplifying our voice and thank you for being with us. Let's put our hands together for ourselves. It has been a brilliant period. On that note, I will say, finally we close this session and we can have our lunch and maybe our councillors will have both breakfast and lunch.